All right, welcome everyone. Chris Petri here. Thanks so much for coming by. It's great to have you here painting with us. We're having an enjoyable time. We're going to do some architecture. We're going to do a beautiful entryway to a house with stairs, beautiful architectural features, glass windows, the front entry doors, a beautiful staircase leading up to the front entry doors of this beautiful house. We have greenery, shrubs, plantings. We have lots of colors. We're going to show you how to use the glazing technique, which is really simple. You'll have an easy time doing this painting because we're just going to basically go through it step by step as we go. We'll go through the drawing first, explain how we're going to get everything in here just right with our pencil drawing, and then we'll explain how we're going to prep, get all of our colors in our palette. You'll see this palette on camera at all times. So you'll have your palette on cam at all times, as well as our photograph that we're going to be working from here. And then what we'll do is we'll go through each step of the way, the drawing first, then the prep work for the painting. We'll show you the glazing technique, which is a very popular technique that most watercolor artists use. Light washes first, and then we build up some darker washes over the top. Just like the person that created this watercolor painting, we're going to do the same thing here. Light washes first, medium tones, tonal values, and then the darker tonal values last to get a beautiful layering effect of lights and darks. Make some really beautiful effects with shadows. You'll see all the way we put everything all together. So let's get started in just a second with the pencil drawing, and then we'll move right into the painting next. Okay, see you in a second. All right, so we just sort of finished painting. We're excited. We're going to get started here. The first thing I'll do is I'll zoom in on the photograph I have on my phone. So what we're going to try to accomplish here is a good painting, hopefully. We're going to start out by looking at the photograph. We're going to do a pencil drawing. I might not get as detailed as we're seeing here. I want us to be maybe to work on this for like an hour, hour and a half. So if I was to take my time a little more, I might take like 2-3 hours to do this, with a little more detail possibly. But we're going to try to get through it a little more expeditiously so that we're not maybe, just taking up all of our time trying to just get the thing drawn in, the pencil lines and everything, and then we're so tired it's like frustrating to get the washes on. So let's work on getting a good representation of what we see here with some pencil lines. I'll show you the shortcuts here as we go to maybe make it a little more, simplified so that we're not doing too much, thinking and having to go to too much extent with calculations, and we'll use a rule though, but we won't maybe measure in a tremendous amount. So what I'm saying is I'm going to try to simplify it a little bit. Maybe if someone hired me to paint this, I would take a little more time. So that's the thing when you work with watercolors, always remember, does this make sense? If someone hires you to create a painting, or if you're making a painting for someone for a special occasion, or you may be excited and someone, maybe there's a gallery that you can show your work and they want a few paintings for you to create some work, or if you want to put your artwork into a show, something like that. Those type of things, by all means, please take your time a little more, get a little more into the details of things, maybe do a few renditions of the painting first, smaller, and then if you're going to do a larger painting, you'll do a couple smaller thumbnail sketches like this size here, about, maybe 5x7 or something, and then you can do a bigger sheet of paper. And all you have to remember is when you're doing larger sheets, larger paintings, you're going to have to perhaps use a little bit of larger brushes and maybe a little bit of a larger palette, possibly. You might be able to I could do a really large painting actually with this palette right here. But that comes with time, so you'll figure that out as you go. You're the artist. You're going to figure out all these things as you go. But here again, let's get into the fundamentals of this. So I just wanted to show the kind of close-up of this, and then we're going to zoom back out, of course. And we're going to get our palette in the picture. Our paper, we'll slide that over here. We'll leave this for our subject matter. So we'll use this at the whole time. I'll leave that there. I don't think there's no glare on that, which is good. So my light is not reflecting on the phone at all, and I can see it clearly too. So you see here is basically a vertical view of this scene. So we have a vertical here. Sometimes you might look at something and you'll say, wow, I taped my paper, but it looks wider and not as narrow and vertical as this. So that's simple enough. If you do see that when you start to work a little bit for a few minutes and you're starting to, look at your picture and look at your you can always take another bit of tape and maybe going a little bit at a time. You might have to do a couple passes with your tape to where you feel it looks like it's the right coverage. But I think if I do 2 of these, 2 more passes with my tape, I think it's going to be pretty much the right ratio of the bottom and the vertical. And it looks pretty good. This one might need to be readjusted. So again, don't be afraid. You have your tape, you can always lift up your tape and readjust it. I think I went over too much on the bottom there. Like that. Alright, so that looks much better. And usually for my YouTube videos, I'll get a little bit more, fussy with how it looks on camera. So I'll take just a quick little zip here, and so I'll just make these edges even here. It's less of a distraction too when we're looking at it. So that's another thing too. I want you to have a good look at things. I don't want things to be distracting where you're looking at me painting this and we're painting together, and then you have stuff like raggedy edges and stuff. That's not good. You don't want to see that. Kind of distracts your attention from the paper possibly. Okay, so we got that done, and I'm going to use number 9 millimeter retractable pencil. This is a Pentel, actually, a 120.A3. I always mention too in the beginning of the videos, I do have all of my art supplies, pencils, paints, brushes, all that good stuff, paper, down below, right below here in the comment section, and it's all links to Amazon. I shop exclusively on Amazon for the most part because it's quick and easy. I'm not driving around for hours wasting time. I just order it on Amazon. It gets delivered in a couple days, and that's it. Don't have to worry about spending money on gas, again, wasting time, sitting in traffic, all that kind of stuff. So that works great for me. And alright, so let's get started. Maybe we'll do a quick little go around here on the outside edge of the tape so you can kind of see the border clearly that we're working within. And this sometimes works. I'll just maybe make it a little bit more simplified like that so that I don't have to. Okay, like that. Okay. Now, again, I'll use a ruler for this just to kind of get some things started. I'll go up here and just go across. There's like a, that'll be the top of the second, or the bottom of the second floor there. So I'll just make that line across. And again, no big deal. This doesn't have to be perfect. It looks like 2/3 across here. So about 2/3 across here is this wall. And this is an entryway to a modern house with a really beautiful winding staircase going up. And that's what we're going to try to do here. And let's see, let's get that wall in. And then we can even, before we do that, let's take a quick look and just say, break it down and say, what do we have here? So maybe halfway is going to be this landing up here. So this is like a poured concrete staircase with poured concrete landings. Pretty sure these are stucco or concrete walls. And they could be stone too, cut stone. But I think this does look like some poured concrete, I would say. So in any case, halfway up you'll see this line here. So maybe halfway up we'll just put a line. Approximately halfway. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, we're not going to really, I mean, you can take your time as much as you like. And you can find cool pictures like this online, Google searching things. Find all kinds of interesting architectural. I think I typed in front entry stucco modern house watercolor paintings. I think that's what I actually typed in. As a matter of fact, before the end of the video, I'm going to type in exactly what I typed in to my Google search, and you can find the same, probably the same painting. And okay, so we have that halfway point, which is right here. And then maybe we could see from here Halfway up is this small, looks like a planter, a wall, which is probably a planter box up here. So if I go, this is maybe a quarter over, 1/4, 1/2, 1 3/4. Yeah, so that's about a quarter of the way over here. And it's about halfway up to the top here. So I can just even do it by eye and say, okay, halfway up, halfway up is about there. I come across here and I make that planter there. And I come down and meet where the landing is here, the concrete landing platform. And it just so happens that this, well, let's keep with the basic first, the basics, before we get into other details like the windows and the front entry doors here and the glass. All right, so we got that halfway up, that there. Might even be a little bit less than this. I'll leave it the way it is though. Then, like we said, that's about a quarter of the way over. That's about half, 3/4. So then about a little bit more than halfway across. So if this is halfway, a little bit more than halfway, we're going to do the stairs. That might be close to halfway there. Okay. Now you really could, if you wanted to, trace this if you have to with some acetate or any kind of plastic. You know, if you get this up on your computer screen, your phone, your iPad, your TV, whatever, if you Google search and find this photograph, which I think you'll be able to do, of this rendition, this watercolor rendition of this modern home with all these beautiful plantings and planters and stairs, really beautiful scene, just kind of like you feel like you're walking up to the entrance of the house. Just a beautiful painting. If you find this, you can always trace it maybe, or you can carefully measure everything too with a ruler and just take your time and really, you know, you can do it that way too. But like I said, I'm going to try to just do this by eye, and I'm going to try to do it so that I'm not really taking a tremendous amount of time, your time. I want you to be having fun with this, watching this, and then painting along with us, and then getting started yourself and doing your work. So I'll maybe go over a little more with this for the top of the staircase there. That's the top platform where the entry door is. So that was might probably be like the second floor. There's probably lower floors, but the entry's up higher. And so we'll leave it like that, and then we'll start our first stair, our first riser, as they call it. And then you can see that they're thinner here. Can you see how that, as these steps go up and get further away from us, so you can imagine if you're standing down here and looking upwards, this is in the further distance. So these are going to get very thin, these risers of these stairs. You see how these lines are very they're thinly spaced? And then as you get down lower, they get taller and larger in height. So that's just a good thing to remember. You're going to start out, whether you start at the bottom of the staircase and go upwards, or you start from here and you come down, you're just going to remember that you are going to make these a lot thinner up here, and then you get them to be larger as you work your way down. But it's not a drastic change. It's just probably double. So here you can see this might be two of these stairs. These steps, two of these steps might be equal to like one of these here, so almost double in height as you get down to the bottom. Okay, so let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. So we could maybe even see if we can get 7 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll make 8. Probably looks better being an odd number, but I'm not sure on that. About 60 to 70% sure on that. Looks better with an odd number. Okay, so now I'll just go over here and just start making these lines. I hope you can see these. I'll make them dark, actually. I'm sorry if I'm drawing too light. See, I'm drawing too light. Much apologies on my end here. I should know this by now. Doing these videos for so long. I'll just go over this with a darker line. Up here was a darker line too. So this was up here, this second floor. And then again, I'll go darker so you can kind of see as I go. Now, at home, when you're creating this drawing, I wouldn't go dark with your pencil lines. I would go like medium pressure on your pencil, because this way if you have to make an adjustment, it's easy to erase it. And I usually use kneaded erasers. They don't make any crumbs, and they lift up the pencil lines fine. And that's the key. They don't leave crumbs, so that when you're painting watercolor after we're done drawing, you won't get any funny crumbs on your watercolor paper. So I'm going to keep working my way down here like this. And I'm not worrying so much about the right side over here. I just want to get the lines in to start with, and then we'll fix those up. And if you have a little bit of, if one of your lines or two of your lines go out of straightness or something, or out of level, don't worry about it. Okay, so now I'm going to look here and say this bottom step, how far is it over compared to up here? So I would say it's about here. I could make it wider even too, like that. So I'll make these steps a little wider. And then once I get that first one at the bottom started, then I'm just going to take each line as we go here and just step it in a little bit. As you can see up here, this just steps in a little bit at a time, a small amount, like that. And that's all you have to do. So you're doing your end, you're doing your edge of your stairs where you're seeing it in that kind of you're seeing it in that three-dimensional view, like that, where it steps up and kind of corbels up like that. So you just have to recall that it's easier to just get your steps in first, your parallel lines first, like this, then, and you leave them short, and then you come over here and you start your first step here, and then you just go in, back in, and just, set your ruler up right on top of those lines you already have drawn in, the parallel level lines for the tops of the stairs, just like that. Drawing your next, and you just have to really just draw that vertical line there, like this, like that, and then you have it. Then we look here, we see there's the wall over here, so we can take this. This wall is even, goes a tiny bit up, like this, if you can imagine. These stairs are straight. This wall goes up on a tiny bit of an angle because we're looking up at this. And perspective is basically where lines will have angles to them according to where your positioning is of where you're standing and looking. So that's all that really is kind of just a thing, how things look. So that, this looks like an angle up here, just a little bit though, not that much. Like if this is level, you can see it's on a slight angle. So let's make a slight angle. Try to keep it true to what we're seeing in the photograph. There we go. And then there's a wall here, like that. This line's level. So you're going to find all of your lines that go across the painting this way, they're pretty much all going to be straight level like this, but you will find a few up here that are going to be on a little bit of an angle like this one. I think that might be the only one. And then here, this is a little bit lower. There's another planter up here, a wall with a planter behind it. It's a little bit lower than this wall here. Like that. Okay, bear with me here. This is a little bit of some drawing, but nothing you can't do. It's really, we've only just started. We're like halfway there. We have the top section almost done. What we have to do is a few more lines up here, and then we'll come down and do the bottom portion, and I think we'll be all set. And I'll keep it a little more simplified. I'm not going to get into a tremendous amount of more detail. All right, so up here, let's get back and finish this top section. So here you'll see that this wall comes up here, and it's right above this here, and it's a little bit in. So this line here starts about over here, like that. If you have to keep your lines plumb, you can always use a T-square. These T-squares are really handy. You just kind of like line them up on the top of your paper like so, the edge of your T-square, and then you can get perfectly straight lines like this anywhere you want them, or level lines this way. anywhere you want them by just holding them on the edge of your line of your tape or your paper. All right, so we're going to take a quick break now. We've been working quite a bit, and we'll get back to it. But again, good to take some breaks occasionally when you're drawing, especially because it takes a lot of concentration. But you keep working if you want to. Or you're the artist. You're going to figure out when you need breaks. But I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back. All right, we're rolling again here, and let's see now. We were just talking about, you get, again, please, this is just a fantastic tool to have for your art supplies, is a T-square like this, a nice clear, transparent T-square. Again, you can line it up on your tape. If you set your tape up pretty much straight, you know, close to straight and square, then you can use your T-square any way you want, and anywhere you want, and you can see you'll be able to get perfectly straight lines going this way or this way anytime you want them. I'm used to drawing a lot for many years, so I can use a small ruler like this and make my way around with not using this. But I do like to use this though, so don't get me wrong. I still sometimes my angles aren't always correct, or my straight lines. I sometimes have problems with those things too. But that's just a kind of a thing you can think about if you want to pick up one of those. I think it's really good. So again, we said we're going to finish up this top section. So we have pretty much everything here. This stairs, wall, planter wall. We have this wall here. We're going to make this wall here. Looks awkward the way that is there with that line. I don't know. I guess I'll do that. Why not? We're going to have some stuff in front of it anyway. Some plants and things. So that we have that there. Okay, so that's good. Let's just take a look. Where is the front entry door and lights, glass panels up here? And they are starting, this wall comes back to about here. And this starts back about here where the glass panel is, and then there's some doors over here to the right. This glass panel goes up to about here. So let's go down like that. We go straight across like this. And then we have this angle coming up to there. Should be pretty close to what's in the photograph. Like that. Okay. Perfect. I think that's good. Then over here we have a dark line. We can just do that. That's like that's a shadow of the ceiling, I think. We put that there. And then another, and then there's a small type of light or something in there. We'll put it in just so we don't forget about it when we start painting. And then here we'll create these bushes and plants later. Let's get the basic structures of everything: the concrete stairs, landings, platforms, walls. So I think we'll draw these in by hand later, the window lights and things. Okay, so the top section is done. So this top half is now complete. Now we're going to say over here is all one wall coming down to here. Down here, this is like so, about a quarter of the way up, even less than a quarter of the way up. We have this planter at the bottom. I'll go across like that, like this. It goes in at a slight angle like this. Just a little bit though. I think we're pretty much standing at the bottom here looking, so this might be straight. Maybe a very slight angle like that. And that's like this. Then we have a stair over here. A riser here. Like that. Okay. And now we come up here, and now I'm just going to kind of do it by eye again. I'm not going to bore you with my drawing here. I'm just going to hopefully, it's a little bit rounded. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to make it round. I'm going to make it straight. Just straight across like this. subtleties we can worry about later. So that first steps up in here. There's some rocks over here. We'll save that till later to do more of that detail. This one steps up here. So now we have our next riser here. And now we'll keep working these. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lands about top of this. And that's about correct. Our fourth one there is about the top of that planter. Like that. Okay. Then what I'll do is there's some plantings over here. Like this. Like that. So what I'm doing is I'm sort of going down here and looking how these plants and a few things like this from rocks, some plants. I think they're bushes and plantings. Come down here like this, and then they kind of stop about there, and then the stairs keep going across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 here. Okay, this next one here's about a little bit there. There's some 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You might have to count a few times here and there as you're going. And remember, your treads or your risers of your stairs are getting thinner as we go up. So I'm going to try to start thinning them a little more here. They're pretty wide here, and then they're getting thinner. And then the next one here is a little bit thinner yet. So we're going to thin these up like this. Okay, and then if I look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 and 5 are straight. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 are straight. Here, 1, 2, 4 and 5. 6 and 7 trail over this way a little bit. Over that way a little more. So that's the next 2. Like that. And then the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next 5 are pretty much kind of about the same as these here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you end up with more stairs, you don't have to worry. Just do it that way. Make more steps on your stairs. Don't worry about it. So I obviously, I'm going to end up with quite a few more stairs than I thought, and that's only because I didn't trace it. If I traced it, I'd have exactly the same amount of steps as we see in the picture. If I decided not to trace this right now and just did it by eye, well, you can see I have more stairs, but that's nothing to worry about. And this should be here. A little bit lower, like that. Across here. Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. Now, I think what we'll do is we'll take another break, just a quick break, and what I'll do is I'll just, maybe for 5 minutes, I'll stare at these plantings and these bushes and things, and just to get a kind of a feel for them, look at them for a few minutes, and then we'll come in and we'll draw those in. So it doesn't hurt to do that. When you take a break, you can always take a break, come back, and then maybe look at this for about 5 minutes or so. Just check everything out, kind of look at everything, see some of the shapes. Maybe you can kind of see some, way some brush strokes are going to go and some pencil lines are going to go as you're looking at it, and then we'll start up again and we'll finish up the plantings here in the planter boxes and throughout the picture leading up to this beautiful entryway. Okay, so we'll be right back in just a second. All right, so we are really in great shape right now. I think what we can do is start working in some of our shrubs and plantings and things here, and we'll be really well along here to getting ready to start our painting. So what I'll do is, I wanted to mention this too. Now, I'm going to do this pretty much by hand, most of the plantings and things, but if you find that you wanted to get some subtle curves in your plants, and some of these, like these are kind of like, I guess they look sort of like stems or something. I don't know. I have to look. I'm not sure what these are. I'm not really a super green thumb person, but they look really nice actually. I'm not sure what they're called. Maybe someone will leave in the comments section what these are, but they're kind of like, they almost look like small, like trunks of trees, but there's no, like, you know, branches offshooting from them, but they do have some curves to them. Some are kind of straight, some have some curves. So I was going to mention there's some great stencils out there you can pick up as an artist if you feel like you're going to be wanting to venture out and do some of these really fun, enjoyable, and beautiful architectural type paintings, which I think is fantastic to do. You know, you pick up a few of these here and there as you go when you're working, you know, as you can. As your budget allows, you pick up a couple stencils once in a while, but these are great. They have the soft curves to them. You know, you can get quite a bit of beautiful architectural features with these, with radiuses and curves and things like that. So we might use this. You can also, I used to use this a lot when I worked at a job years ago. I just bring this in my my backpack when I would go on my jobs, and if I had to create sketches of rooftops or something like that on buildings, I would use this to create the curves, because you can. This is a Statler actually. A Statler. The number on this is 97160-24. It's made in China. Statler. It's got the measurements on it, so you can measure up to 24 inches. So this is 2 feet. 2 feet, and it's fully flexible, so you can see you can flex this any which way you want to, and you can just set it down in your paper. So if you wanted to get, like, again, radiuses, curves, curved lines, anything like that, this is really fantastic. This works great, or this too is good. So I will use this maybe, but I'm not going to use this right this second. Actually, I'm going to start out with these maybe. So the first few are actually straight, so we can maybe, the first few I'll start out straight like this, and they go from the planter down here all the way up to here. Wow, that gives you some great three-dimensional quality in your painting and design here, having it go all the way up to here. So I'll make this one kind of straight, and you can make a double line if you want, but you'll know that you're going to be painting this with a thinner brush. We might use our needlepoint brush. We'll cover that in a little while, in a few minutes or so. Okay, and then there's another one that comes down here. Then there's another one here. I'll hold them a little bit short to the top of this, because you can see there's some plantings right here. So we have that there. And there's another one that comes up like this. This one goes pretty far up. This is the tallest one out of all of them, like that. Then we have a couple curved ones here. We're going to do this, and they're kind of soft curves. They come up towards this here. So that curve is a little bit, I'll move this, there we go. That's what I'm looking, less curve. So you can see how this, you can adjust the curves by just moving this up. So less curves here on this part of the stencil, more curves here on this part of the stencil. So you just adjust it to where it looks like it's kind of looking like it's doing the same thing. That looks about right there. And those are up to the top of this planter, all the way up here. Like that. So that one's like that. Maybe another one. I'll change the angles of these a little bit. Like that. And then these other 2 or 3 are kind of heading out this way over here. But they do kind of curve, so I'll start them like this, and then I'll kind of come up like this, and then this one maybe comes up like here like that. So don't worry about if it's perfect. What's a good thing to always remember when you're painting watercolor and even doing drawings like this and things, when you're done with your painting, no one's going to kind of focus on just one area of your painting. Everyone's going to look at your painting and look all the way around it and meander through it and find all interesting little things throughout the painting. So there's usually never one focus on any one thing. This is a really nice feature in the painting, this part here, but you'll notice that people will look at other things too. So never to worry. That's the theory anyway. Then we have some shadow over here, like that. Okay, so we have these here, those sticks. Then we have these. And again, I'm not really getting too fussy with things here. I'm going to start making some shadows, drawing in over here, which looks to be some rocks. It could be that there are actually rocks here. They have all embedded in this whole staircase, like features of rocks and plantings and things. I think that's what they did here. It looks really awesome. And then we'll have that there. And there's another few more bits of leaf forms jutting into the stairs. And then there's some rocks that kind of are in pretty much part of the integrated into the staircase. And then up here we have some more rocks up here, like this, like that. Okay, then we have more greenery up here, more bushes, and the greenery starts about here, right at the top of the shadows, over here like that. So I'll start kind of contour drawing in the greenery over here, just some shapes of leaf forms and some weeds and things. And then up here there's just some other bits of some greenery just to tie everything together. And then there's some more up here. Very subtle though, up here. And then over here we have some really nice looking plants over here. These are kind of like so. So again, you see I'm kind of working quickly now because it's the plants and the rocks along the staircase. Nothing too, rigid, or like we're not using rulers and things, because we're kind of doing the plants and so forth. And that's really kind of fun, free. You kind of just look at this and see how things are shaping up, and you can go in and do a little erasing if you want to, if you find that you want to just change something a little bit, but we won't get too involved with that. We just want to make sure we have some greenery and rocks over here on this side of the staircase, up here, just like here. We have it right here, and then all the way through here we have the plantings up here, some bushes and plantings here coming down, some rocks, some more plantings right here in this planter, and it's like flowing out as well here by the staircase, and that's pretty much great. And then up here, maybe a tiny bit of greenery up here we're going to see. That's another planter up here. This one up here has some really nice, this is probably a beautiful bush up here, or small tree with some really nice greenery up there. And it kind of ties right into over here where this wall is. That's good. And you can see we pretty much have everything all set. The next thing we're going to do is let's just finish up with the front entryway where the glass is. So we're just going to notice there's these glass panels that make up these glass panel walls up here. You can just put frames, make them frames, that's all. Just make some frames so that you know where to kind of paint in your frames of your windows and so forth as you're up here. There's some really dark shadows, so let's get those in. I'm going to draw it in. It's almost like an upside down L, if you can imagine. Upside down L. So I'm just going to take that and make that like so. And then up here, there's another window panel. We'll put that there, like so. And this is up here, so another feature up here. So these are just fun little things you're going to paint in with your really dark paint. And we're going to go over that next. In about 2 minutes and 2 seconds, we're actually going to, I'll cover with you how your approach is going to be with this painting. I'll explain to you the technique and methods that we're going to use to paint this, because it's, you know, that's another thing. We're drawing it now, and you're working right along with me, and you're probably doing a fantastic job at home in your studio creating this drawing with me. And then now when we start the painting, I'm not going to leave you in the dark at all. I'm going to make sure I explain to you exactly how we're going to paint this before we start it. And that's going to be the key. If you can kind of follow the steps that we're doing right now, I'm sure you have done that with the drawing. And now I'll explain the steps and procedures that we're going to use to get the painting done. And you're going to see how fun and easy it is. It's actually pretty straightforward and simple. Nothing like it's not rocket science. Okay, so now we have our windows up here with our, just basically we drew in the frames of all of the windows, because it's like a glass panel wall with framing in it. So we wanted to create that so we do know what to do once we get up there and start painting. We want to kind of have that laid out for us so that we don't have to no guesswork. We go in, we know right where we're going to be putting our darker washes. These are pretty much dark washes up here. The framing of the windows and also the front entry windows, indoor, and so forth. Okay, and there's a little bit of, we can see here, there's a little bit of reflections of the plantings and things in that window here, which is the entry door and side lights. All right, so we are ready to paint. I'll take a quick break and we'll come back and paint. Maybe if you want to, we can do a couple more details here, just to maybe. So you'll see I put that square up here. There's a little bit of a detail of design there. There's another little bit of a line here. It's probably an expansion joint. It could be stucco. They might have, yeah, it could be stucco, expansion joints. Could be cut stone. Could be concrete with small expansion joints or control joints. We don't know. I'll put another shadow here. This shadow comes down to the steps. Beautiful shadow here and light. Goes right to the top of the stairs there like that. And I think that's it. A couple of horizontal lines across here. And that's what's nice about this architecture, is they have beautiful vertical lines, lots of parallel lines, and quite a few vertical lines too, but mostly parallel lines, level lines like this. All right, a couple of lines here on the planter, kind of a detail there, just a little bit of, I'm just kind of trying to find a few details here and there that I can put in before we leave our pencil and our rulers and everything behind, and then we go forward and we start painting this. I think we have everything. All right, so now we'll come back in 2 minutes and we'll explain the painting process just really quickly for about 1 minute, and then we'll get started. All right, so now we're going to go over the painting process from the start. I just spritz my paints a little bit. These are fresh squeezed tube paints. I use Holbein and Winsor & Newton mostly, 90% of the time. And I just spritz my paint, keep it a little bit moist as we're going here, but it was pretty good just to start with anyway. Now, some of the brushes I use, we'll use maybe a fan brush for some of these really nice weeds and things over here. So you can have a fan brush for that if you like. You can use some of these pointy brushes like this instead. If you don't have a fan brush, you can just use round brushes. This comes with the Prangol 16 set. I use that all the time painting. It's more of a beginner style watercolor set, and it comes with a brush just like this. So if you're just starting out, you'll check in the description box below, and you'll also type in Chris Petri Prang Oval 16, and you'll see what the palette looks like, how it works, the colors that are in it, you know, how I paint with it. And if you type in Extreme Beginners, if you're just starting out with watercolor and you never painted before, that's not a problem. I'm glad you're here. I'm really excited you're here to paint and draw with us here and paint with us and create some beautiful artwork. And it's a fun, beautiful hobby to have, watercolor painting, and you can even do it professionally if you like. But it's fantastic. We paint here all the time on my YouTube channel, so I'm hoping you'll subscribe too on the right-hand side below if you haven't. If you're just starting out, because if you're just starting out and this is the first time you're seeing my video, please don't lose track of us. Click the subscribe button. Alright, so we'll keep going here. So we have some round brushes we're going to use. We'll also use some flat brushes like this with the straight, beautiful straight line on there. Natural straight line with this brush. You can get a lot of wonderful architectural features, and they make them larger too, so you can have different sizes of flat brushes. These particular ones are in the comment section below. These are Princeton Art and Brush Company brush set that comes in like 6 or 7 brushes, and there's like 2 or 3 flat brushes like this, and then there's a number of the other round brushes like this one here. So you can see that, you know, round brushes, a couple flat brushes is fine, and then maybe something like this for some weeds. And I also have a needlepoint brush, which is fantastic for making these tall weeds like this. So you can see how fine point that is. And you can get some really nice fine weeds and grasses and things, wisps of grass with a needlepoint brush. So these are basically the brushes I use all the time. And I have a video on brushes too. You could probably just type in my name, Chris Petri, and type in brushes. And you'll probably see I have 5 or 10 videos on all the brushes I use. And, you know, we do little, you know, sketches and stuff with them, and little swatches, and do some painting exercises, things like that. I also have a book too down below. You'll see I have a book that has all my art supplies in there too. You can see a quick 2-minute video of my book, and you'll see that it has all the basic fundamentals of starting out your watercolor, and then also the tools I use: brushes, pens, pencils, paper, you know, and all the techniques and everything that we use in watercolor. All right, so that's kind of our housekeeping list of things we like to cover here as we go, but that's the thing. Now we're going to cover the next thing, which is covered completely in my book, Chris Petri, Methods for Success. It's the glazing technique. I use basically 2 methods when I paint: the glazing technique and the alla prima technique. The glazing technique works simply, and we're going to use it here. The glazing technique is painting all your light washes first over the whole paper, letting it dry 100% completely, and then coming back over the top and doing your subsequent washes over the top, which are your darker washes. So for this painting, we're going to do basically approximately 3 glazes. The first glaze is that beautiful golden and red, kind of that orangey gold color across the whole paper. That gets washed in first, really lightly. Then we start building up our medium tonal values with some of the grays and browns and some of the greens, and then we finish up with our darker parts of the painting, which will be the dark glass and some of the, you know, panes of the glass wall here by the entry door, some of these dark shadows, some of these dark greenery areas with some dark shadows in there. So you'll see there's some darks here, especially up here. There's quite a few darks up here and in this shadow. So we'll get those covered at the end of the glazing technique when we're doing the last bit of the washes with the darks. But the first thing we have to tackle is the really light washes, and that's real simple. You could just imagine right now, you're going to see how fun it is, simple it is to get your first wash on. Okay, so let's do it. I just take a basic round brush to start with. I have fresh clean water in a water container, crystal clear water, fresh clean water. And what I do is we're going to mix our colors first. That makes the total sense. Not stressing on mixing colors as we're going. Let's mix all our colors first, right here in the palette, and then we'll just wash the whole paper with our colors. Okay, let's do it. So I'm going to use raw sienna over here, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, Okay, and I add a little bit of water to it. Not much though. You see how I'm kind of just, I have a fair amount of water in there, but it's not huge puddles of water, just enough, just like that. Then what I'll do is I will add a little bit of cerulean blue, because I do want to add in a little bit of cerulean blue and maybe even some purple. We'll use some ultramarine violet. I use Winsor & Newton ultramarine violet for my violet. It's the best violet I've found in the watercolor paints out of all the brands. So cerulean blue, that's Winsor & Newton as well. And this is ultramarine violet, Winsor & Newton. My raw sienna is Holbein. And I think I have Winsor & Newton alizarin crimson. Okay, so these are the colors we're going to start with. Now what we do is we put our round brush aside and we're going to use our flat brush. We're going to use this brush here to do the wash. Now what we do is, since we've been kind of like mixing and cleaning our brush and putting all these paints in the palette, mixing up ahead of time, right, so that we have all our colors prepped and ready to go to put onto our first wash, our first glazing, let's just empty this out and start with more fresh, clean water to wet the paper. So we're going to wet the paper with fresh, clean water. So I'll put more fresh, clean water in here to start with. This is an important step. Okay, then we do that. Get the fresh, clean water in there, and then we just dip our brush in there, and then we just give our paper a light coating of water over the top. And you just have to lightly coat your paper with water. Don't worry about it if your pencil lead is smudging a little bit. That's not a worry. Just put a light wash of water over your entire watercolor paper, and I wouldn't flood it with too much water, just dampen the paper. So you just go across a few times like this, and a few more times like this, and you shouldn't have any puddles of water flowing off your paper or anything like that. You want to keep it just a light coating of water on your paper so that your paper will be prepared so that when we add these colors to it, it'll flow nicely. Okay? All right, perfect. Now we're ready to go. So again, we were saying how this beautiful under glazing that we're going to do right now, the first glazing, is just the really light color, and you can see it's basically, again, the golds, the oranges, a little bit of red, gold, orange, and there is some blue. And let's add a little green. I'm going to add just a touch of green there too, sap green, but just a little, just like that, because I want all those colors to harmonize throughout this first glazing. All right, now we're ready to start. So we just grab a little bit of all those colors and just pick them up and just put them on the paper. Just mix them around. I'm not doing anything too fancy. I'm just trying to get all of the colors. I'll add a little more raw sienna there because it does tend to have a little more of a golden color to this first glazing. So I'll use more of the raw sienna, if anything. And as you can see, that's how fast it goes. Quick, easy. And we have all of our colors incorporated. Purples, greens, blue. Everything is in here. And that's all we have to do. Now, we'll let this dry a couple of hours probably. If you don't want to use a blow dryer, if you have a blow dryer, you can use a blow dryer, and probably in 10 or 15 minutes you can have this pretty much dry, that it'll be dry to the touch, and there won't be that buckle to the paper, because right now the paper's buckled. We put quite a bit of water on there, so that's natural. Your paper's going to buckle when you put a lot of water like we just did for that first glazing. Does that make sense? So when you see those buckles happening, you don't worry about it. You just let it be as it is. If by any chance you find you see a big puddle of water somewhere, no worries. You grab a tissue and very lightly tap up. You'd rather have a little bit of some, lighter looking spots on your paper than have a big puddle of water in there, because that'll cause more problems. And then you might even go around the outside edges too when you're done with that first glazing if you want. But that's it. And that's ready to dry for a couple hours or so, or overnight if you want to come back the next day and start working. Or again, if you have a blow dryer, you can blow dry this off maybe in 10-15 minutes. And once you see the buckles out of your paper and the paper's back to being flat and you can touch it and it's dry to the touch, then you're ready to do the second glazing. So now what I'm going to do is turn off the camera as we're videoing here. This way I'm not making a lot of noise with the blow dryer and all that. And we'll come back just in 5-10 minutes. I'm going to use a blow dryer and dry this off, and then we'll come back. All right, so we're getting back to painting now. We're finished with our first glazing. Paper's nice and dry. I used the blow dryer for about 5 or 10 minutes. Next thing I'll do is I'll just do a quick cleanup of the palette. I like to keep my palette clean after each of my glazings. This way the paint colors stay fresh, clean. Of course, we always talk about using grays when we're talking about painting in watercolor, and that's like mixing your colors and using complement colors and, you know, getting kind of grayish, you know, muted looking colors versus, you know, using straight out of the tube colors all the time. So I like to use a lot of straight paint right out of the palette onto my paintings. For this painting there's a lot of like more grayed down colors, so that's fine. I use whatever the subject matter is, I'm trying to work with that. So here we're going for that second wash, which is going to be the middle tones. So we have the lights first, all good. Now we're going to go with the middle tones. So we're going to be working with like the some brownish and gold colors through here for those middle colors. The greens are middle tones. Some of these greens are dark like this, and over here some darks, but we're talking like the middle tonal values are going to be sort of like the stairs over here, up through here, the stair treads, the actual risers of the stairs. And over here there's some middle tonal values here. There's some middle tonal values up here. So we'll start working on those and we'll see how we go. But what I'll do is just simply, I'm going to take more of the same colors that we mixed. We'll use some red, some raw sienna, dip in a little more water just to get these a little bit red, raw sienna. I'll put some yellow ochre down here, some brown. I'll put some brown over here so we can kind of mute down some of these colors with some brown, and also some cerulean blue. So we add some cerulean blue to our colors, just a little bit, like that. And then even some more brown here. So some brown and cerulean blue gives us a nice grayish color. And again, we can add in some purple, tiny bit of purple, some green. So we're just using the same colors we used before. We used some sap green before. That'll be for our plantings. So if you can imagine, you're just getting out your colors. So some greens for your plantings. And I wouldn't go much beyond what we started with the painting. So I would use the sap green for your greens. And then again, we used basically the same colors again. Yellow ochre, raw sienna, alizarin crimson for our reds, and a little bit of burnt umber again to just darken some things up, make some grays with some blue, like that, and I'll use the cerulean blue, and that's about it. I wouldn't get more colors going into the painting than we have here. The only thing we might add is a darker blue, maybe some French ultramarine blue to get those darks up here. So we could start adding a little bit of French ultramarine blue to our washes if we wanted to, some of the darker washes. Okay, so let's see how it goes. I would say I'm going to start with a medium-sized brush. Up top, up here, to get those some medium tones up there. This stays very light up top, so I won't do anything there. And always remember, when you're doing the glazing technique, you can always go back and add a darker color over the top. So don't worry about it. Try to get the best you can, your middle tonal values. Now the only problem I have here is I usually rest my hand here and paint like this, but the phone is there with the painting there, so I'm going to have to work around it. I won't worry about it. I'm just going to work around that situation. You'll find that in watercolor you have to do that. Work around situations. Sometimes it's frustrating. If this painting doesn't turn out good, you don't worry about it. You just go back, flip the paper over, start a new one maybe you start a different painting, and then maybe in a month you come back and try to do this again if you want. But that's kind of that's sort of the way we work with watercolors. You have to remember it's not easy, but you can have a lot of fun, and each time you pick up your brushes and your pencils and you work at it, you're going to get better automatically. And you'll see a lot of progress too if you're just starting out. You'll see a lot of progress in the beginning, but once you start painting and you've been painting for maybe like a year or two, then the progress goes a little slower because you've already kind of really gained a lot of experience in things, and then it's like refining what you know and just getting better at what you're working with. The techniques you've learned, the methods, working with all your colors, your paints. It's a long process, but you don't worry about it. It's a journey. The watercolor is a journey. Enjoy the journey, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to go over here, and I'll just cover this whole area, and we're going to be going over with a darker wash there, but so we'll go over with this medium wash right now. And we'll just do that. We'll just come right like that. And I wouldn't worry too much, but I definitely want to keep that white, really light wall there. And then I can mix in some green here. Start mixing in some green. If you want to make a lighter green, you could add a little bit of raw sienna to it. I wouldn't get too fancy in the beginning, kind of stick with those same colors we started with. I didn't add anything new, really. You can do a little splashing, a little bit of that green. Add a couple splashes like that. Up there. Okay. Leave some lights there. So that's one thing to kind of remember is a little bit, try to leave some of that dry paper up here in some of these sections. You see how there's some dry first glazing, that really light wash there. You can kind of see it's kind of peeking through there. So you just try to remember to maybe do a little bit of that, like leave some of that wash there if you can. If you can remember to do that. And I'll add some cerulean blue and sap green. Over here. Okay. Okay, and we're going to go in with darker wash like that here eventually. But right now we're just going to go with those medium washes. Okay, now we have a nice, this looks like cerulean blue. So I'll put some I should say, French ultramarine blue. Complement is like a red, so you could pick up a little bit of the alizarin crimson and French ultramarine blue, and add in a touch of brown to gray it down. And then we can get that kind of look there. And there's a little more blue in there. Let me see if I can get some of that. Some of that blue in there. I think that, yeah, that looks good. All right. And if you think it's too dark, you could always lift up a little bit with a tissue, but always remember watercolor dries lighter, so when you put it onto the paper, it gets lighter when it dries. But you could lift up a little bit of paint once in a while if you think it went too dark, like that. Okay, now this is more of a raw sienna here, raw sienna, and a little bit of burnt umber. And I always like to do, when you're doing these darker washes, you want to keep the paint kind of like not as much water as when we started with the first wash. So to do that, you just rinse your brush. I'll kind of show here. You just take your brush, you rinse off your brush, and then you tap it on a tissue or paper towel, or you could leave a sponge next to your water container. So all you want to do is when you rinse off your brush to start mixing a new color, or whenever you go and rinse your brush off, you just tap it on, like, again, a tissue, paper towel, or sponge. So this way you won't have tons of water flooded in your palette, because if you keep rinsing off your brush and going to your palette and in your paints, and you're not tapping off a little bit of water off your brush, checking off a little bit of water off your brush, you will tend to get a lot of puddles, and then your washes won't be as dark as you need them to be to get these medium tonal values. And again, eventually we're going to be using the darker tonal values. So to get these darker washes that we're doing now over the top of that first light wash, that's the method you would use. You would have your tissue or your paper towel or sponge, and you just tap your brush off a little bit, take some water off your brush first, then you come over here and you do that. You grab some paint. And that's one of the keys to really having nice medium tonal values and darker tonal values in your paintings. That's where I think I see a lot of students over the years that have that issue where they forget to dry off their brush a little bit when they're done rinsing off the brush. So I just keep a tissue in my hand at all times. Even if I'm holding my palette in my hand, I'll have a tissue in my hand and my palette in my hand, and I'm holding my palette and my tissue, and then I'm always just naturally rinsing off the brush, touching on the paper towel or the tissue a little bit, and then going in and picking up some paint and going in like that and doing it that way. And that really does help a lot. Okay, so now we have a shadow over here. That's really interesting. It's kind of like this, where the light stays over here. So we don't want to cover up that paper there, that light paper there. We want to leave that as it is, like so. And you can see I'm kind of painting on the left side of my painting. Again, another thing you can imagine will be very helpful. Does this make sense? To be very helpful for you is if you're a right-handed person drawing and painting, you're always going to want to start either drawing and pencil drawing or painting. You're going to want to always start, if you're right-handed, on your left side of your paper. So when you're drawing, you're starting your drawing first over here, kind of working, generally. It doesn't have to be exact or perfect, or that's not the all the time rule, but just generally. And especially when you're painting, it's easier if you start out your painting working from left to right. This way you can still rest your hand on your paper and do your painting and keep your brush nice and secure as you're having your hand resting on the board and your paper. And then you can, work this way, and then you're not leaning in any wet paint. If I was to paint over here first, and then I decide to go over here and I rest my hand down in it, then I'm going to rest my hand into the wet paint or smudge it or something. So that's always just good if you can remember, work your painting left to right, or if you're left-handed, you just remember the same thing. You grab your brush when you're starting your painting, and you're working from this side, right to the left, like this. And for watercolor, it's really important. Because it's just we want to keep those washes looking really good, and if we smudge an area with watercolor, it can be really hard to fix and repair. You can sometimes work on your painting and repair an area that you might have smudged, or some kind of paint smudged or dropped onto your painting by accident, but it's not easy. I should make a video on that because I've done it a number of times over my years, actually a lot of times. So I'll cover that. I'll do a video on that soon. Let me know in the comment section if that seems like a good, interesting video. Idea is like kind of repairing paintings if they've been smudged or something spills on them or something like that, because maybe a lot of you already know how to do it. I'm sure many of you know how to do it, but maybe some of you don't know. So I'll always cover something. If enough of you want to see something, just let me know in the comment section, and I will certainly try to do it. All right, so we're continuing on here. We're working left to right. Looks good. Maybe a touch of tone here, like that. This stays bright white left, just like that. There's a little bit of wash here. Very light though, I'm doing a very light wash there, like so. And okay, now I'll take a quick look over here. I think we'll do some of these stairs. So I have some brown and red and gold. So again, I'm sticking with the same colors I've been using. Maybe a little bit of green in there. Maybe a touch of purple. And that's all this is, just carefully. I have a very fine point brush here. This is a this brush actually comes with this paint set, the Schminke palette set we have here. This brush comes with it. It's a travel brush. You can like clean it off at the end of the day if you're out painting outdoors or anything like that at a park or near your house or in your backyard, or if you're on vacation or visiting someone, a loved one, some friends, so forth. If you're having like a small weekend getaway, you can bring your brush with you. Bring some paper, some paints. That's what's great about watercolor. You can just bring it anywhere and paint anytime you want. And then when you're done painting with this brush, you just rinse it off. Take the brush, put the brush together like this. It's got a hole in the top so it'll dry naturally. And then you can throw this in your pocket, in your purse, your backpack, duffel bag, whatever it is, and it'll dry naturally. And then it's ready to be, you can use it again in a week or a month or in the next day. And that's it. There's nothing else to it. Okay, so we're going to keep going here, and we have these steps up here. The first two are kind of light, and then we start to see a little bit of red there. I'll mix a little bit of red in there, and this is actually, this might be a good so I leave a little bit of white at the top of the step, like that. And then some of these are going to melt together, like that. So this fine point brush, which is a Da Vinci round brush number 5, and it's a synthetic brush, so kind of nice, synthetic, because it doesn't have too much water in it. It actually handles real nicely. It holds a good amount of water, but not as much as natural hair brushes. And then a little more. So you can see we're going across and getting the risers of our treads of our stairs in. And doesn't have to be perfect. I think that's good. And then we're doing this wall over here next to the steps. And we can change things up. This has a little bit of a more yellow, so I'll put like more of a golden color there with the raw sienna. Then the next one has a little more brown, so we'll do that. We'll have the next one brown, and these tend to have that little bit of white left on the top of the stairs. You can see that a little bit. So I'm leaving that little bit of white paper above the stairs. And then you can always start working in a little bit of your greens as you're going on these stairs to kind of blend in that color. And then I'll just start going across. So I'll move kind of quickly now. You just kind of get the idea. I'm just going down, looking at my reference photos, and just doing the stairs. I'm just going to go across. I like to carefully just take the brush and go across like that. There's some more greens up here too, so you can start to blend in some greens along the side here, just to get things going over there with some of the green shrubs and plantings and things, and a couple splashes. I'd be careful with the splashing, and if you don't like splashing, you don't have to do it. So I'm just trying to tie in some of these greens into the staircase so that it doesn't look separated. It kind of blends in together. And then up here, I did notice this over here blends in like that. And then you can throw in a dark brown here and there for the steps. Some greens over here. Okay, and then we're just going to keep moving along here. I hope everyone's having fun with this. This is really enjoyable. And this is kind of the easier part of the painting now because we're just using our brush carefully and just doing our parallel strokes like this, touching down the brush, sliding it across. And again, I cover these exercises in my book. If you want to learn how to kind of handle your brush a little more accurately, I have exercises in my book. You can follow along on those, practice them. You can use just regular printer paper and practice brush strokes and things on printer paper, so you don't have to use your good paper all the time. I used to do that. I still do that. And then I see some different shadowing and things, but I'm not going to follow what I see in the painting over there. I'm just going to kind of go like this and just keep going along here. So I'm just going to keep working this. Okay. And as the stairs get larger, you have to go in and pick up more paint as you're going, and then all right, we've been working quite a bit. We've done a lot of painting so far. So let's take another break. Good to take breaks again. Again, this has been, we started up here on the top of the painting. We worked all the way down. We basically did the stairs. That's kind of like the fun where you just lock your hand down, carefully just keep going across, very fine point brush up here to get these stairs in, the thinner ones, you know, and then as they come forward, you can kind of see, we could have shifted to a larger brush if we wanted to. You know, you can go with a little bit of a larger brush. You can see the difference. You could use a larger brush like this, then you can kind of, you know, cover it with maybe one brush stroke versus having to do two like we were doing here. But it's all well and good. Whatever you want to do, you're the artist. You're going to use whatever brush you feel is good for the section of the painting that you're working in, and that's fine, well, and good. And okay, we're going to come back and finish up the painting. I think we have just two more, maybe two more 20-minute sessions here, or time frames that we'll use to finish up the painting. I think we'll finish up the greenery and the shrubs and so forth, and some of these really beautiful sticks here and stems, and then after that we'll just do the really dark darks here and there, and that should be it. We'll be finished. Okay, all right, so we'll come back in just a minute or two and get started with finishing up again some of these middle tonal values, and then we'll get finishing up on the darkest darks eventually, the darkest tonal values. Okay, we're moving on here, getting this painting almost in a completed state. We're gonna clean our palette. We've used a lot of colors, mixed a lot of mixtures. Just good to start again with a clean palette. With this, I would do the same thing with my water. My water's a little bit murky looking. I'll change out my water. Fresh, clean water. That's always good. And what we'll do is we'll mix up some more paint. So we're pretty much in really good shape. We're finishing up our medium tonal values, and we're going to work into our darker darks. So let's finish up our medium tonal values so I can look around the painting and start to say to myself, where am I going to start to work again? We've done quite a bit already. I think we could still work on some of these medium tonal values here with the greens, here with some of the greens, and over here. So let's work on those. I think what I'll do is I'll get myself a tissue, nice fresh clean tissue here to check off my water. So I rinse off my brush, check off some of the water here, and then I'm going to start blue, green, sap green. I'll take some purple over here, and what else do we have? Sap green, fair amount of sap green. But notice I'm not really going back to the water container. I'm just taking straight paint and putting it in the palette and seeing if I can. I'll use some brown and green. That makes a nice olive green. Sap green's a little bit brighter. Add some brown to your sap green, you have more of an olivey green, so that looks good. And then some French ultramarine blue up here for some of those darker greens. Okay. So we have a pretty good mixture there of the greens, and then we're looking at maybe some more alizarin crimson and raw sienna, like that, with a touch of some brown and maybe some cerulean blue. And that might be for some of the, I think there's some rocks here, so we're going to have some rocks and some shadowing on the rocks like that. And there's some more shadowing here too on the rocks on that side. So we do have some there. I won't get too fancy, just, some interesting bits of color. There's a little more shadowing over here, kind of tying in with the steps. Okay, and then we have some greens. And like we said, if you add a little bit of burnt umber to your sap green, you'll get an olivey green. It doesn't hurt to have some cool greens over here too, which we will implement in a second. So we'll have some of those Sap greens over here. So we'll mix some warm and cool greens, as we call them. So we'll use sap green and burnt umber to have our warmer greens. And then we'll also use some French ultramarine blue with sap green. That'll give us kind of a cooler green, like that. So you can kind of see we're trying to... A couple of finger taps sometimes will look good. I'll do some darker greens coming across here. This is the wall over here. And there's some greens over here by the wall. These are more warmer greens, like that. And I see a circular bit of a plant there, like that. I'll take some green and splash a little bit, like that. All right, now there's some more greens over here, kind of those olivey greens over here, in this section over here. And then there's some grayish greens over here with some of that blue. And the same thing, a little bit of French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, sap green. And we have some of that darker green here. So you'll see that we will keep referencing back. There's going to be some nice, interesting leaf forms that are kind of springing out. Like this. No need to get too fancy, just quick couple brush strokes there, some blue, and I noticed that there's some really beautiful kind of little pops of color, like some cerulean blue here. And some more weeds like this, like that, and then some darks. French ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt umber, sap green. So it's nice to have those little pops of real. So now we're starting to get into the darks. Can you see that? Does that make sense? To start to infuse your darks now, as we're getting toward the end of the painting, you can start kind of blending in your super darks into your medium tones, which is what we're doing here. So I see this really dark here, and we're already over here working, doing our weeds and some of our grasses and things that are kind of springing up and springing out. So we just figure let's utilize the time and make a dark up here with some French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and sap green. And then we can just get our dark in there like that. And accomplish that dark there. There's a little bit of dark there. So these are some of the darks that are going to kind of be springing up in the painting right now, because we're sort of finishing up. And we want to get them in there. And there's a few over here. And then we said there was, yeah, there's one up here. Okay, we see that a little bit there. And then up here too. We're going to let those go though. We're going to do those next. Up top, the darks up there, and then up here by the glass in the front entryway. But we're still going to work over here. We're going to have some more greens, sap green. Like that. We'll do some grasses like this. We're going to put some of that color in there, some blue, like this. And I will enjoy the process right now. I want to see everybody have a fun time with this and start to, you know, have some more time to work. Okay, so here, rocks, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. Might as well make some darks over here. You can see these are like rocks over here, like boulders that are along the sides of the stairs. So I'm just going to make some round shapes. Take some splashing really close to the rocks there. I don't want to get too carried away and get off track here. Okay, so that's there. Some purple. Like that. Some of the rocks there. I just lifted up a little bit of paint there that I saw that kind of infiltrated the planter over here. Some more splashing over here. Some grayish colors over here. So again, more grayish colors here just to kind of keep that planter looking good. A little bit of shadowing underneath the planter there, like that. We'll do the same thing up here. A little bit of shadowing under there. Okay, now I think what we'll do is we'll start working in our shadows up here, the darker shadows. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, and a touch of purple. Okay, and then I'm going to do that. I'm going to start going up here. I'm carefully using my brush. Use a smaller brush if you have to get that dark up here really close. You can use, again, those flat brushes if you want, like this. Some of these really flat brushes work good for the kind of the square edges of things. I'll be careful to get these architectural features sharp. But you can see that's a good shadow there. Okay, the same thing here. This is a little bit darker here. Change the angle of my brush like this. To get that shadow. Then I rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of the water on the paper towel or tissue, and then I blend that in like this. It's a little bit lighter over here. So I leave that lighter. This is darker over here. You can even go in and add a little more, infuse a little more dark in there. Like that. So you can adjust the dark and light of things as you go. And you know, you can make it darker. Add some more French ultramarine blue to this up here. Like that. All right, now I think we are looking good. Let's say at this point, let's work on the upper darks up here. Only thing with that is, gotta be careful. Brown and blue, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, maybe a touch of green, touch of purple, raw sienna. Okay, and then we'll add this over here. So this is all going to be dark, and then it kind of goes like that. Okay, dark there. If you go over a line, no problem. Pick up some paper towel or tissue, fold it up really nice and kind of crease it like this, and then you can press it down, lift it up. And there we have it. We're starting to just develop that dark there. And then we have some reflections of those darks there. Like that. Okay. Okay, a little bit of reflections there. Okay, good there. And then some greens. Sap green. Up here, just like this. So we have some sap green up there, a little bit of dark maybe. Some darks there mixed in with that sap green. Kind of get it looking pretty much to match that. That there. It's a little bit cool up there, so we could add some purple to that. And some blue, cerulean blue. And remember, we're going to put in those dark frames too. Sap green, a little bit of burnt umber. Okay, we're getting there. I'll put a couple of these weeds in there. I'll use my needlepoint brush at this point. I'll take my needlepoint brush, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, raw sienna, a little bit of sap green. And we'll just get a couple of these really nice. We're going to need a little more water in there, so add a little more water to this, like that. More green. Okay. And you'll be surprised, you add a few of these really nice You use a needlepoint brush to add some of these really incredibly beautifully detailed wisps of grass and some weeds, and I'll tell you, it really takes the painting to another level for sure. So put a few up here. Not Not too many, just a few here and there, and then we have it. Okay, and then we're going to let this dry for just a few minutes. And once this dries, you can use a blow dryer, of course. Once we let this dry 100%, then we can go in and do our final darks where the window frames are. I think other than that, we have pretty much everything else sort of worked out, looking good. Things are all sort of in the right place where we needed them. When we were going through this whole painting, we were careful to try to follow the dark and lights of everything, as you can see. So we did a good job of that. Maybe there's a few things I did a little different, you know, like I didn't stick with the 100% look of the painting with every detail, but I did try to keep it close to what was there that we were seeing. And that's about it. So we're going to do these final beautiful sticks up here of these plants. We're going to try to figure out what they are. We're going to reverse engineer these basically twigs or small trunks or whatever those are. We're going to figure out what they are. Someone's going to let us know in the comments section before too long. But I think that's pretty much, we have everything except for the framing up here at the windows. We'll do that next once this dries up here. That could be a little bit darker, so we're going to go with some French ultramarine blue. Burnt umber will make the darkest dark we can. French ultramarine blue and then some alizarin crimson in there too, and some burnt umber. And that's what we use too and some purple and some brown. So if we get French ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson, brown, burnt umber, a little bit of purple, we get a really great dark there, almost like a black. And then we'll do our frames of our windows with this color. And I think that'll be it. All right, so let's take a quick break. And when we come back from our break, we'll do our final two items over here in the planter and then up here in the windows. All right, here we go. Finishing up. I also wanted to mention I found this brush. It's a small, kind of like a flat brush, a small flat brush. It's a number 2. So we can do some of these fine window frames here with the darks with this very fine brush. I think it'll work better than trying to use a pointy brush, a round brush, but we'll see. And then we'll use some more shadow. We just wanted to pick up a few more shadow colors. I noticed over here there was some more shadow colors over here like this. So I'll just get these shadows in over here like that. Okay, I wanted to do that, get some shadow in over there. I noticed that when I took my break, I came back. I saw that shadow over there. I wanted to make sure that's there. And this has just a little bit of a shadow on it too as well. Subtle shadows, but they're there. And changes in the light and darks. So we try to follow whatever we're seeing here to the best of our abilities. So I did notice that was a little bit, there was a little bit of a change in the shadowing there. Okay, and then we said we were going to use our very, very fine flat brush here and see if we can get some of these darks in. I guess it has to be convincing that they have to be pretty straight lines. I guess you could, I wouldn't use tape or anything like that, I don't think. You could use tape, I guess, to get the straight lines. It would be really not that difficult to do it. You would just take some fine artist tape, like this, and then you'd go slowly and just do like one, basically like this if you wanted to. You would just take like 2 pieces of tape like this and put them, we'll do this one over here. You could take like 2 pieces of tape, put one there, and then put the one on the other side like that. I mean, this is if you wanted to really take your time and really get those lines precise, like that, and then you lift them up. That would work too. I'm trying to be careful here, just go slowly. My hand's resting all the time on the paper. Here, my hand's resting the whole time, and I'm just basically touching my brush down and just going a little bit at a time, maybe an inch, then I move my hand down a little bit, and then touch the brush down again, go down about another inch, lift up, rest my hand down again, and do that. So you can do it that way. You can use tape. Sometimes you can even use a dowel or something like this, and you can rest it on the paper and then rest your hand on top of it and get right over the top. So you're actually using your hand to rest on a dowel. It gives you a little more flexibility with the way you're working with your brush. A lot of oil painters use those. I forget what they're called right now. Someone will leave it in the comments section. All right, so we have those details in there. Put a little bit of blue in there, even a little bit of cobalt blue. Sometimes that might work a little bit. Put something in there that maybe we haven't used before, but just such a subtle amount that no one would ever notice. You can put a little bit here and there. So if you were to use some cobalt blue up here, then you would just put a little bit in a few spots like this, and then blend it in. So if you have it in kind of like a here, there, and everywhere, it won't look out of place at all. Okay, and that looks like we are really coming to a conclusion here. I think everything looks really good. We'll use our needlepoint brush one more time, or we could use we'll use burnt umber, burnt sienna, burnt umber, and a little bit of the red, the alizarin crimson that we used before. And then we rest our hand on the paper, and then we'll put in our beautiful. And I would just slide my brush down like this. I wouldn't try to be too fancy with it or get like too This one's up higher like this. A few lower ones here. They look great. Like that, and that should be it. And then I tidy these up a little bit here, make them solid. Like that for the most part. Then I can take some greens with some water, some greens here, sap green, a little bit of burnt umber, some blue, maybe some cerulean blue, like this, and I would just add some water to it. And I just sort of splash this in a little bit, kind of blend this area here with these, like that. And that should be fine. So I hope everyone had a fantastic time painting along with me here. Take your time on this, enjoy it. Take some notes if you want to when you first start out. That sometimes is really good to do. A few notes here and there to this should be really, really dark up here. So I'm going to go back in and add some more darks to make it almost like a black. A solid black almost up here. It really looks good. It gives you that feeling of the windows and the reflections like this. A little bit darker up here, so I'm just doing some final adjustments here. It's sort of pretty shadow, you know, lots of shadow up in there by the glass, by the front entry doors, so I don't want to have it too light up there. It's in shadow. It's underneath, so you can see this is all covered. It's a covered area. It's like an alcove going in. Lots of shadow in there. The glass is picking up some bright light, but it's still quite dark up at the tops, like this. So I think that should be good. And I'm hoping everyone, again, has had a great time. I hope you'll give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this where we do more architecture, fun things like this. I always like to do a few different things here and there that are, you know, something we can challenge ourselves with and have fun with. Also, practice some new techniques with like rulers and measuring and using some stencils, and then doing some, you know, again, subject matter that we don't maybe do on a constant basis. But here on my channel, I just want to say thank you for coming by. If it's your first time, you're at a great place. You're at the right place at the right time. I do subject matter in watercolor, and I do every type of subject matter: city scenes, streetscapes, landscapes. We do flowers, we do ocean scenes, beach scenes, figure painting, all watercolor, and as well as architecture. We do everything here watercolor, and we're always here just working on our skills together, hoping you'll always come back and enjoy, have fun with us, and enjoy the watercolor journey. And we'll see you on the next video. Again, thanks for coming by, and happy painting.